What if the real secret to 10x growth wasn't about adding anything new, but was more about taking things away? Welcome to Wise Minds, Wild Hearts. I'm Kip Clark, and today I am kicking off a new mini-series that's close to my heart and, well, honestly, my nervous system too. And it's called the Subtractive Strategy. So if you've ever felt that success has or is starting to cost you peace of mind, or you feel you've built a life that's relatively successful, but it's so full, you're just going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, that you can't really even enjoy it, then what I hope is this series will feel like a lovely deep exhale for you. Because this is the thing. In the Western world anyway, we live in a culture that glorifies accumulation. So I'm seeing all the time messages about getting more clients and having more platforms and more funnels and bigger goals and more of everything. So we've been trained to believe that success comes from addition, from adding more, and that progress equals addition or addition equals progress. But what if success follows a different flight path from that? Now, in psychology, there's a theory known as cognitive load, and it tells us that as our mental inputs increase, so we have more data coming in, more information, more stimuli, our performance efficiency actually drops. And it doesn't drop just a little bit, it drops exponentially. So we quite literally get dumber when we overload our minds. And so that's why subtraction, the process of subtraction, of taking away, of offloading, especially the things that aren't working for us anymore, whether that means deleting a task that you don't enjoy, or setting a new boundary around something, or even maybe releasing an aspect of your identity that doesn't serve you anymore. It doesn't align with your future self vision that you have. This is not an indulgence in doing this subtraction. It's actually it's part of intelligent design. So let me share a story with you about a client I worked with a couple of years ago, and she was really at what I would say, it looked like she was at the peak of achievement. So she had a thriving practice. She had lots of clients. She was working on several different projects. She was getting speaking invitations. She had a podcast. There were all kinds of deadlines she was working towards, but there was just absolutely no oxygen left in her calendar. When I looked at it, it was really clear to me. Her calendar was so overpacked with things. And so the first thing we did together was to really take a look at her calendar and see where can we start subtracting. And so the first thing that showed up immediately that week that we were talking, at the end of the week, she had a meeting coming up. And I asked her, is that meeting really essential, or is its purpose something that could be accomplished in a different way? And almost immediately she said, I've been thinking for a while that weekly meeting is really not, it's not helping. It's taking up time. It holds up. There were 8 of them that would meet each week, and it meant that all 8 weren't working on stuff because they were in this meeting. And now sometimes meetings are absolutely necessary, and they are the most efficient way of talking through something. But for this particular meeting, it was a weekly one, and she realized, no, it's actually that could be accomplished through an email or a couple of emails. So that came off her calendar. And not only that, but she had her admin assistant write out the email to send to the people that would have been at the meeting to say, here's what I think, and here's a solution, and what do you all think? And so she wasn't even writing the email to say, we're not going to meet and here's what we're doing instead. So that freed up some space. And then the next thing, there was a social obligation that she had coming up on that weekend, and she was not looking forward to it. to her. It felt like an obligation. And of course, I've talked about this before as well. There are 4 energies that my good friend Karen Baines refers to as the not so fab 4. And that's obligation, guilt, resentment, and sacrifice. And those 4 energies have a very low vibrational frequency. So you want to avoid them, avoid them, avoid them. So this social event that she had on her calendar that she wasn't really looking forward to going to, I said, do you really need to be there? Can you send a message saying, I'm sorry, I find that it no longer fits with my schedule, and I'm going to have to beg off here. I could visibly see the relief on her face. So this is how the process works, is that little by little, I helped her to start offloading some of the things that weren't serving her, felt like an obligation. She was doing on a sense of guilt. What if I don't do it? What'll that mean? What'll that say about me? And so on. And she actually said to me at one point, we hadn't been doing it for too long, and she realized, and she said, I realized I have been managing my success in the pursuit of my goals the same way I used to basically manage my stress, and that was just by digging in and doing more of everything, just working harder. I'm sure she's not alone. I can relate to that. That is something that I have done myself in the past, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And she also said that what surprised her wasn't just that she was gaining extra time, which was lovely. Now she had some white space in her calendar, but it was also she was gaining insight, because she realized that when she was no longer just going like, a mad thing from one task to the next, to the next, she could slow down a little bit. She started connecting with her own intuition again. And so this is the beauty of the subtractive strategy, that it can actually be a kind of recovery plan for us, where we recover time that has been spent in frenetic pursuits. We recover space to just think and really be intentional about what we want to create next. Now, in the academic journal called Nature, there's some research was published by a researcher named Klotz, and they found, that researcher and colleagues found that when a group of people, they were studying a group of people who were asked to improve on something. So there was one group that had a Lego structure, and another had some recipes, and a third group had a sort of simple business plan. And everyone was told to do whatever they felt would be best to improve upon the thing they were working on. Most people, the big majority of people in that study, added to the project. They added to it almost instinctively. There was almost no one who thought about subtracting. But it reminded me, when I was reading that study, it reminded me of Steve Jobs' story, the founder of Apple, who at one point was actually fired by his own board. They felt he was too difficult to work with, and he tended to be, the way he worked with people, he was kind of legendary for being difficult, but also a brilliant person, a real innovator, a real creator, a pioneer. And so without him, after he was fired, the company didn't do so well. It started really floundering, and it was losing market share at an alarming rate. And so eventually the board reaches out. This is after, I think, a couple of years had gone by. They reach out to Steve Jobs again, and they bring him back, and they say, we're in trouble. What do you suggest? So he comes back on board, and the first thing he does, as he says, tell me everything that you're working on and creating right now. So he's shown all these different projects and products. And he said, what are the 2 or 3 here that are our best products, the ones that are kind of the bread and butter of our business? And they identified those. And he said, okay, we're getting rid of everything else. Now, his process, this is because of the kind of person he was, his process was just to axe them instantly, get rid of all of it. Outside of those 2 or 3 things, 3 or 4 things that were working well. This is not necessarily what I'm advocating, is to do it like that, just one giant chop. That would feel like too much for most people. But it worked for Apple, and it definitely turned around that company's fortunes. And if you live on the planet, you know how well Apple does. So back to that study of the people that were asked to improve upon something, the few people, so most added to the project they were given to work on, but the few people who actually did subtract something, they removed something from the thing, whatever it was, everyone agreed that their results were simpler, in many cases more elegant, and definitely far more effective and efficient. So think about this. If you've been chasing your next level, the next strategy, the next certification, the next platform, the next funnel, the next system, it's probably not your lack of effort that's keeping you stuck. It may be the amount of effort you're having to put into it, but it may be a kind of addiction to addition. We've just gotten so used to it that we don't even really notice that that's how we're operating. So in this mini-series, for the few episodes coming up over the next several weeks, I'm going to explore 9 different principles that will help you do less to achieve more. So that'll be from simplifying your schedule to getting really clear about your identity, about the future self version of you, the one that's achieved the next level that you want to achieve, the one who has achieved your impossible goal, getting really clear on who you want to be and how you want to show up and living from that starting today. I'm going to talk about really amplifying what matters, because what I'm talking about here is it fits into the Pareto principle. And that's the principle that says 80% of our efforts produces only 20% of our results. So that's a terrible ROI. That is a terrible return on our time and energy, and in some cases, our money investment. Now, of course, the flip side to that is that there's 20% of what you're doing regularly that produces 80% of your results. And so it's that 20% that I want to focus on, that those are the tasks, those are the people in your orbit, those are the places you inhabit, all the elements that go towards contributing to your success. So it's that 20% we focus on, and we look at how we can begin to offload the other 80%. And so it's a gradual process, though I do find once clients that I've worked with, once they start doing this, it's slow at first. There can be a lot of resistance initially, but once they get going, it becomes, it gets faster and easier, and they get to the point where they almost want to throw everything out. But that's not what I'm advocating here. It's about being really intentional and really looking at everything you're doing, getting rid of anything that falls in those 4 low vibrational energies: guilt, resentment, obligation, sacrifice. And being really honest, almost brutally honest, about what are the things that really are working, and what are the things, probably most of what you're doing, that aren't really working the way you want them to work. And so those are the things to begin to let go of. So I want to give you one really practical tool to practice this week. Let's call it the Subtractive Pause. And it's really simple. And this is something, for any of you who have people-pleasing tendencies, it's really hard to say no whenever you're asked for something, even though you don't really have time for it, even though it's not something you really want to do, but it's just you don't want to disappoint this person or let that person down or have anybody think that you're not a team player or that somehow you're deficient because you're saying no. So here's how it works. Before you say yes to anything, so that's before you add something to your get-to-do list, before you answer an email, before you answer a request from someone, pause. Just pause, even for 5 seconds, and ask yourself, does this amplify my signal, or does it add to the noise? So the distinction here between signal and noise. Signal is the clear vision you have. The signal is the goal state for you. It's the aligned goal that you're working towards. And it's beautiful and it's compelling and you're excited about it. That's the signal. The noise is everything that's a distraction, everything that pulls you away from that, everything that takes you off that path, everything that moves you out of alignment. And that's people, places, and processes or habits. So again, the question you ask yourself, you pause, ask yourself the question, does this amplify my signal or does it add to the noise? If it adds static, if it's adding noise, the answer is no. If it's going to amplify your signal, absolutely lean in. Now, I'll just add a little bit to this, and that is for those of you who do struggle to say no, you have a tendency to say yes to things. I'm saying here for this little subtractive pause that you take 5 seconds and ask the question. If saying no is really, really hard for you, I'm going to expand on this a little bit and say, just never give an answer in the moment. If someone asks you for something, don't say yes or no at that moment. Just say, can I get back to you on that? I'll get back to you at the end of the day today, or at the end of the week, or by this date, and give a specific day, time, whatever, and then do follow up at that time. But when you put some distance between the request and your answer, it's easier to really think about it and say, is this something that is in alignment? Is this something that I want to do? Is it something that I would be good at? Is it something that would move the needle? Is it something that would be a win-win here? If it's yes to all of those, then for sure, absolutely say yes. But if there's hesitation, if you feel your energy drop, if you feel guilt or obligation of any kind, those are signals that it should be a no. It really should be a no. So don't answer in the moment. Say, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you by the end of the day. Because people can often put pressure. If they know you're the kind of person that tends to say yes to things, chances are good the people around you have learned how to manipulate that, how to make you feel guilty if you said no to something. So they're going to put some pressure on you. So you just keep repeating, I've heard your request. I really appreciate that you thought of me, and I'll get back to you at the end of the week. And then leave it at that. You may need to repeat it a few times, but that's okay. So either one of these, whether it's not that difficult for you to say no, but you have a tendency to overfill your calendar somehow, just take that pause and ask, is it amplifying my signal or adding to the static? Or if it's a real problem, then just say, I'm going to take some time and I'll get back to you in a day or two. Okay, so that little question, if you practice that daily, it's remarkable how much this will reduce the mental clutter, and it'll keep your calendar from getting overfilled. And it's really better than any productivity app I've ever seen. Maybe there's one that's better, but I haven't seen it. So give it a try. Now, in the next episode, the episode coming up, I'm going to be talking about what I call the space between more and better, and why simplification, this is not about sort of laziness, not at all. And I know that's not how you're wired anyway, but this is about precision and energy flow. So I hope you'll join me on the next one. And if today's conversation, if it sparked something in you, maybe you felt your shoulders drop a little bit, maybe you felt like you can breathe a little more deeply, then you're already experiencing the first glimmerings of how powerful the subtractive strategy is. And it could be so much more for you. So I'd love it if this episode has been helpful to you. Please like and subscribe. And also, if you can share it with anyone you think could benefit from hearing this message. I'd really love to expand my reach with this podcast. I think I'm in 26 countries now, which is amazing. Countries all over the world, but I'd love to expand my reach even farther. And you can help me with that. So share it with friends, share it with colleagues. Do like and subscribe. The more people that can hear the message and share the message, the more we all benefit from that. So thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of my community. And I look forward to seeing you on the next one.